Well, we are here with JT Smith.
Can you believe it?
I can't believe it. Toronto. So crazy. We're so grateful to have you here with us. Just sit down and talk. JT is on staff at Elevation. You are the youth social media manager. You do so much more than that, and we'll get into that in a minute.
So do you. I mean, is our title ever really our title?
It's
you
not.
Know what I'm saying?
It's not. But I can't believe this is happening. We've been wanting to sit down and talk to you for so long. You're not only on staff, but you're also one of our great friends. And so we're just excited to be able to have this conversation.
Yes, honored to be here for sure.
Well, before we get into the official questions, we thought we would play a little game of Would You Rather This or That Tour Edition.
Tour edition.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Just wrapped up tour.
Yeah.
Just wrapped up tour. Elevation nights.
It was wild.
I definitely am sleep deprived for sure. So if I say anything wild, I'm sorry.
There we
have to cut that out.
All right, I'll kick it off.
Okay.
When you're in a new city, are you kind of like, let me go and have like my go-to favorite food, or are you like, let me try the local stuff?
Local stuff for sure. Local stuff every time.
Have you had poutine yet?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I did at McDonald's on the fries, and it was disgusting.
Let us know, is that actually real poutine?
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. The people who I was with said it definitely shouldn't look like what it did. That was absolutely disgusting.
All right.
But you did have beaver tails.
I did have beaver tails, and they were
Yes.
phenomenal.
All right. So he is trying the local food.
No,
Yes.
I am for sure.
Yeah.
That was great.
Okay, are you more of a sightseer or are you resting on your off day?
Sightseer, 100%. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram.
Okay.
So I feel like I'm missing out if I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
A lot of people go back to the bus, get back in their little bunk, and sleep in our little break in the midday. I'm out and exploring wherever we're at, even if it's Kansas City in the middle of nowhere.
Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Fort Wayne, Indiana. I might have slept on. No.
Lots to explore there. Speaking of bunks, top bunk, bottom bunk. What's your?
So we have 3 on the tour bus: bottom, middle, top.
Middle.
You get assigned your bunk, so you really have no say at all. They say the middle bunk is the best.
Okay.
Bottom bunk, you feel the bumps of the road. Top bunk, you feel the sway of the bus. Middle bunk's that happy medium, so usually they give the veterans those bunks.
Okay.
We're talking the Chad Zolos, the Tim Summers,
yes.
you know what I'm saying? They get the middles, the Ryan Hollingsworth.
Yeah.
I got the top since I'm, maybe a bit more nimble of a guy, can climb up there. And then, if you get the bottom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry because it's going to be a bumpy ride of sleep every night. But
Yeah, I remember, I think it was the spring tour last year where Pastor Tim was talking about how his legs would come out of the bunk.
Oh.
And he was like, I don't even fit in there.
He's 6'5", and I was doing I'm 5'9", and I was like, one night I was like curious. I was like, how is he actually in this bunk right now? And I put my legs all the way down to the end, put my feet on the end, and saw how much room I had, and there was like, oh yeah, there's no way he's able to sprawl out in here. Dude's definitely like this. 100%. Poor guy, man. Poor guy.
But he survived it.
He survived it. He's home now. He's feeling good.
Yeah, and that's 2 weeks of being on bunks, right?
Yes, 2 weeks. 2 weeks. We have they do a great job of kind of splitting it up, giving us some off days, and normally when we have an off day, they'll get us a hotel or whatever, and we can kind of chill out, do our thing. It's the best when we have an off day in the same city as we have a show,
right?
Because then we go, instead of from loadout, which ends around 12, to a random locker room with not the best showers, and then onto a bus. Then we get to break down and go to a hotel, chill the whole next day, and then get back on the bus and head out. Some of them worked out that way this time, some of them didn't, but it was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to hear more about your Elevation story. I feel like I don't even fully know it.
You might
How
not.
you got to Elevation.
Yeah.
I know that Pastor Tim was involved. So tell us a bit about that journey and that process for you.
Yes, so journey to Elevation. Before I was at Elevation, I was at VU Church, hanging out, helping down there in Miami, and really didn't plan on leaving. I established great relationships down there, phenomenal people, mentors, all that. It's where I met Christian, my best friend over there, sitting over there in the slides. But didn't plan on leaving at all. got introduced to Nate Diaz, who I think you guys just had on here. Did you guys have him on here?
Yeah.
And he's in the back taking a call somewhere.
I thought you were gonna say who I think you guys know. I was like,
we know that guy pretty well. So I got introduced to Nate. He came down to Miami on vacation, and so in October of 2021, I went to go visit Nate in Charlotte. He had recently moved there, relocated there, and wanted to get out of Miami for a little bit. Never seen Charlotte before, and also never have seen him sing before. So went to Charlotte for a rhythm night, planned it strategically. And I was helping with youth ministry at the time at VU, and Elevation Youth Ministry is we get all of our inspiration from that. So I went up there, and I was at the rehearsal for rhythm night, just sitting in the auditorium of Ballantyne, chilling, watching Nate rehearse. And me and Tim had known of each other, but we had never actually officially met. And so he walks out, introduces himself, and then we end up doing a quick little testimony swap. That's the best way I can describe it, your elevator testimony swap. And so that was really cool to finally meet him and talk to him and kind of see what he was building, and ended up meeting the whole youth team and really connected with them. And so I went back to Miami. He DM'd me and was like, "Hey, great to meet you, bro. If you need anything, I'm always here for you," which was so kind. And people don't always do that, when you meet them. And so I thought that was really special. And so they ended up posting some job openings on all of their personal pages, like Josiah and Tim and the whole Central Youth staff. And as a joke, I swiped up on one of their things. I think it was Josiah's, and put the eyes emojis. And then Tim was like, "You ever thought about coming up to Charlotte?" And I was like, "No, I'm living in Miami. I've never thought about coming up to Charlotte." And that's kind of what started the conversation over the next 5 months of would it be a good fit for them? Would it be a good fit for me? I flew up there again in January of 2022, and it happened to be the only, the first time in 3 years that it snowed in Charlotte. So my plan was go to a Sunday service with Tim, and then go to work with him on Monday and kind of shadow him, go to the office, see kind of what goes on. Everything got shut down. We ended up pre-recording the service on Saturday before the snow came on Sunday.
I remember this.
Yeah, and so it screwed up originally what we had planned. I mean, and Charlotte is not built for the snow. So when we went out to go get dinner, nothing was open, not even McDonald's. I was like, what is happening right now? It felt like the apocalypse or something. And but it actually worked out really, really well, because the following day after Sunday, when I was supposed to go to the office with him, we ended up just going to get tacos together. The taco place was open. And we sat down, and instead of kind of watching him go through a work day, I got to hear his heart about ministry and about where Elevation Youth has been and where it's going in the future. And I think that's really important that you not only know the heart behind the whole ministry, but you also know the heart behind the leader that you're following.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was really important for me, because the places that I have been, I've really I don't know. It's one thing to go do ministry, but it's another thing to go do ministry with people that you respect and admire and you do life with. And so after I left that lunch in January, I was like, yeah, this is definitely it. And of course, through prayer and talking to mentors and stuff, kind of helped me through that decision. And so, yeah, that's kind of the whole story about how I got there. And then we did all the paperwork, and I moved there in April of 2022. My first thing I did there was the Growing Pains listening party. And
incredible.
Nice.
Yeah. That was nuts.
Unreal.
They killed that stage too, that whole grass and flower thing. It was so dope. Yeah. That was the first thing I did there. I came on staff on contract, so not full time. and it was kind of like our trial period.
Yeah.
They would probably never call it that, but we'll get candid on here. So we did that from April to August, and then in August I got brought on full time as the social media manager of Elevation Youth, and then we started the podcast. I think that month as well. So yeah, that's it.
That's
crazy
awesome.
journey.
I did not know it was in August.
Yes.
Then when we had met in September, you had just been on staff.
Yes. Yeah.
That's fresh.
Crazy.
Yeah, I just got done with core.
Right.
Yes. No, that's amazing. I love how you're like, obviously you were at VU, now you're at Elevation.
Yep.
Was like ministry something that you had like always kind of had a passion, a desire for? Was it something that was kind of like a surprise for you? What was that journey like for you?
Massive surprise. Never thought I would do ministry vocationally.
Yeah.
I grew up going to church. I joined my youth praise and worship team in 6th grade. Started playing the guitar, joined the youth band.
I need videos of that.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
Immediately.
we'll find videos. We can toss some clips
throw
in
a
here.
little overlay.
Yeah. I had like this swoopy like Justin Bieber haircut. Oh yeah, glory days, man. So I started with that. And that's how I started serving in the church, and that was like how I served my whole life was just on the worship team. Parents went to the church, everything. So I grew up around it. But never thought I would do it as a job until I was going to college. I was going to University of South Florida for marketing. And at 19, I actually got hired by a digital marketing agency. And so that's what I thought I was going to do. I was traveling. I was working from home before like that was a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a thing now. But I was doing that, and that's what I thought I was going to do, and had a passion for that, and got to work with companies that I was really passionate about too, in like the outdoor industry. People don't know that sometimes, but I'm a big outdoors guy. I love fishing and hunting.
Yeah. We'll definitely throw some pictures up in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah, that's what I thought I was going to do, and then God kind of started tugging on my heart. I had a great community of people like in high school through my youth ministry and through my church, and then we all kind of dispersed when we went to college. And so he started tugging on my heart. Like I was getting in like a, I don't know, complaining state of mind, like, oh, I don't have community, like blase. And one day, like, he was just like, well, if you don't have community, start one. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but sure. And so I called my buddy one day, and I was like, hey, bro, told him what God was kind of speaking to me about, and he was like, bro, let's just start a Bible study at my house. And so I was like, all right, sure. Hit up some of our friends. We had 7 people come out to our first little Bible study at his house. And then next thing you know, there's like 40 college kids in this house. Wow. We can't even fit everybody. And so at that point, the local church that I was serving at, the pastor was like, you know, we would sit down for meetings, and he was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Like, what would it look like if you started like an actual college ministry? And I was like, I don't know. Like, you tell me, bro. And so 2 months later, we had put together like the funding and a launch team to start a college ministry. And we would rent out like a venue in our downtown St. Pete. Okay. Every month, we'd put together like a collective of like a worship team from all the like local churches. We'd throw this massive college event. We launched with like 150 college students, and it was wild, man. And then we'd do small groups on the off weeks we weren't meeting. And so that's what started me in ministry. I came on contract with that church to run that college ministry, and then kind of the rest is history. I knew at that point like this is definitely what I wanted to do. Yeah. And yeah, it was kind of wild. Never intended for that to happen ever. Yeah. But that's kind of how God works.
I love how God will like sneak you into stuff like that. Like he'll just like give you an opportunity, you step into it, you say yes to the small things, and as you continue to do that, he'll just like open up more doors, and then you realize, man, how did I even get here? Literally. But it was just those small yeses along the way, those small steps that he like takes you into. Yep. I feel like my journey is very similar as well. We're just like, all right, let's start this thing, let's do this, do that. Right. Next thing you know, you're like in ministry, and you're like, wow, God, like I never anticipated it, but like I'm so grateful, and so it's the best. It's the best thing.
Next best step, right?
Yes.
Shout out to Pastor Steven preaching on that this Sunday.
What a beast!
Or whenever the Sunday is that this is
we're
showing this. I want to hear more about your transition from Miami to Charlotte. So you had a huge community in Miami. Your mentors are in Miami. Like, what did that look like? And also, fun fact, we went to VU conference, and we had only met in passing. Nate introduced us randomly in Charlotte one time, and we're down in the lobby at our hotel for VuCon, and I run into JT and Elijah. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? They're like, no, what are you doing? And at that point, we weren't really friends, but we had seen each other and known of each other, and so I thought it was just such an interesting piece, because Miami was so pivotal to what we walked through with Kristen as well. And so to know that you were in that place too is like, that's such a God thing.
It's kind of wild, honestly.
So wild. So tell us more about your Miami to Charlotte transition and kind of your community in Miami, because there's some pretty incredible people that mentor you that are in Miami.
People. Yeah, I mean, even getting to Miami was like the weirdest thing in the whole entire world. Or not weird. I mean, looking back in hindsight, like it's God ordained for sure. But getting to Miami, I was running the college ministry at the time. We kind of thought like, okay, we're building the foundation to maybe like launch a church out of this one day. And so that's where my mind was at. Was kind of just building this thing, setting a foundation to see where it could go. And one of my buddies does stage design in LA. He texted me and he was like, yo, I got a hotel room in Miami. I'm quoting this stage for this church down here. It was like I was living in Tampa at the time, so it was like a 4.5 hour drive. He was like, come down, stay with me, whatever. So I played drums in the morning at my local church, and then I drove down, and he's like, let's go to this service. They have a 7:15 p.m. service, and I had never heard of VU before, never heard of Pastor Rich before. And this was in 2019. And so I'm like, what the heck kind of church has a 7:15 p.m. service? And who's going to go to this thing? Of course, I go. It's literally standing room only. People are sitting on the ground. It was at iTech. There's like 1,600 people in this school auditorium. I'm like, what is going on here? This is freaky. We ended up, they were doing a thing called family dinner at the time afterwards. And so after they would get done with loadout, which ended at like 11 p.m., all these people go to the headquarters afterwards, like 50, 60, 70 people, after they served all day, and they're like cooking food and fellowshipping. I'm like, what is going on? Like, you guys are acting too much like a family down here for church, you know? Not that, anything was wrong with the church I was going to, but and so that kind of like sparked my interest into VU. And so I ended up connecting with the guy who was running their college program and their internship. And he was like, bro, come intern this summer. And I was like, okay, like whatever. And I went back and I was like, oh, I'm running this college ministry. I have no idea what I'm doing. This place looks cool. Like, maybe I'll just go down there for the summer. Long story short, it changed my life. And that's where I met Pastor Rich and Dakota, who's the youth pastor, and two of the people that I look up to so much in my life. And Dakota is like one of my closest friends, mentor. And so I came back and I was like, yeah, I have to like move there and be a part of what they're doing. And so I knew I was moving down there to be a part of it, but I also, knew I was moving down there to learn and kind of just be under some of the best leadership that I'd ever seen in my life at the time. And so, all that backstory to say that it was weird how I got there, and it established some of the best relationships that I have in my life, and to this day, and even the friendships that came out of it. I would have never met one of my best friends, Christian. That's where I met Nate, and just some of my closest friends, and they have an incredible community down there. They take their small groups really, really seriously, and just really, really doing life together. And so I did not think I would leave. I was really rooted down there. I think in total I spent 3 years there. And so transitioning from Miami to Charlotte was like one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. Yeah. It was incredibly difficult. And I wasn't on staff at VU. So I was I was helping manage a gym in Miami, and so it was so hard. And my conversation with Dakota was definitely the hardest for sure. But it was one of those things where when I came back from having that conversation in January with Pastor Tim, it was one of those things where it's like you just feel the peace of God about a decision, and you get confirmations through just things he shows you and having fellowship with him. And then, of course, like people that I trust in my life with those kind of decisions and speaking into my life. And so it was so hard. I'm not a big crier, and I didn't think I would cry when I left, but I got in my truck with all my stuff, and I drove to Dakota's house and spent the morning with his family before they all went to work, and I left, and I immediately just like bawled my eyes out. So it was really difficult, and it was really, I didn't know what to expect at all, really. And it wasn't a guarantee that I was coming on contract, whatever. But it just worked out so well, and in hindsight, like, I'm so glad I did it. And no shade to Miami or VU or anybody there, because literally I go there all the time and I love them with all my heart, and I think what they're doing is so special. But yeah, the transition was hard, but it was definitely the right thing to do, and just God's sovereignty in his hand was all over it. So
yeah, I think that's just like God too, to have you step into something that's you're not certain about,
right?
And you can really see his provision and faithfulness through that transition.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm grateful, because I would have never met you if you didn't come to Elevation.
Never.
And so just the way that God has like ordained your steps and the people that you're impacting now, not that you weren't impacting people then, but now you get to impact a whole new set of people.
Yep.
And I think that that's so incredible, and in such a different way too than how you were serving there. So
right.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of people can resonate with that feeling that you felt like you're stepping into something you knew. You're not 100% certain, like you're saying, this is a contract thing. I'm going out to Florida. No one likes to leave Florida.
Well, I
don't like to leave Florida when I'm there.
I cry every time I leave when I'm on vacation. So, but I think it's like people can definitely find themselves in that same spot where they're like trying to take a next step. They don't have 100% certainty, but they think they've heard God on it.
Yep.
Like, how do you, like, what advice would you give someone who's like finds themselves in that situation where they just feel like, I'm trying to take a step for God.
Yep.
I think this is where I need to go next, but like I'm scared. I'm not 100% certain.
Right.
Like, take me into that dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's always been really important for me to have people who are further down the road than me that I can really trust their judgment. And I think that's just kind of like a practical thing to do. I have an incredible mentor. His name's Trevor Lovingood. He's actually about to plant a church in Denver, Colorado. And he moved his family out there the same week that we had the Elevation night there. So I got to see him for the first time in 3 years, like in person. We talk all the time, but pretty wild. But I think for me, I've always tried to have that. He's in his 30s. He's got a family, so he's lived more life than me, and I have even older mentors than that as well. But that's always been important for me, because I'm kind of like I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I like new and I like fresh, and so I can have a tendency to maybe dip somewhere prematurely, maybe of the next shiny thing. But I think that's one practical thing I do, and I think really like taking your time. I definitely could have gotten to Charlotte way sooner, but I knew Elevation was not going anywhere. Obviously, we're in 17 years of ministry, and Tim wasn't pressing me or anything, but it could have been way quicker. We started the conversation in November, and I didn't get there till April. Yeah. So I think don't rush into anything. Really, like, take your time, pray through things, look for that peace, and the other kind of like maybe practical, not so spiritual thing that my mentor told me was like, bro, you're 25. Like, go try it out, man. Like, VU's not going anywhere. Elevation's not going anywhere. Like, you're young. Go try it out, man. Like, you got time. So I think through those three things is really where I found like the confirmation. And and my parents, who I look up to so much, they're so incredible. My dad is just an incredible man of God. And when I told them, which I was nervous about a little bit, they like were all for it and was like, yeah, if you think it's a good idea and you think God's hand is on it, like, go do it. And I was like, all right. So I think get somebody who can speak into your life, who's further down the road. Obviously pray through it, look for that peace and ask for discernment, because the Lord will give it to you. Mm-hmm. And you know, go try something, like, you know. So I think that.
Speaking of go try something.
Yeah.
You and Elijah Furtick did something so new we had never done before as a church. I don't even know how you guys found the way around, the okay to even do what you guys were doing. Yeah. But they launched a podcast.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that has been, like, it's even shaped how we do things here, like, massively. Yeah. And so there have been times where we've called you and been like, hey, we need some advice on the pod. Like,
of course,
how are you guys doing things? And so I want to hear, like, how did that come to be?
Yeah. And
how has it been as you guys have walked? You guys have had crazy guests. You guys just had Lecrae on, which is unreal. Yeah. So yeah, how did that come to be?
The podcast, man. What a fun thing. First of all, shout out to Elijah. I love that kid so much. It definitely would not be what it is without Elijah. Mm-hmm. He's incredible. He's only 17. Kid's an absolute genius. Cooks up some of the dopest beats for all of our stuff. Has 2 albums out. What are we even talking about? So the podcast, man, when I got to Elevation, Pastor Tim kind of was like, hey, most of us have been here for a long time. Like, you have some fresh eyes coming in. Just start taking notes on some maybe pain points you see or some things we could get better at. And, you know, let me know, like in our one-on-ones or whatever. And so one of the things I kept hearing over and over again, because we have a great YouTube channel. It's got like 90,000 subscribers. They've done a phenomenal job with all the vlogs they used to do and kind of like staying relevant and tapped in with what our youth are, you know, watching and the content they're intaking. And so they built that channel. I mean, they did a phenomenal job, really cutting edge, obviously, as you guys know. And so one of the things I was kind of hearing when I was sitting in the office, getting to know everybody, was kind of like, you know, we need to step up our YouTube. They had kind of all taken on, the people who were really driving the YouTube had kind of taken on, like, you know, more responsibility and didn't have as much time allotted to making those videos. And so it was almost turned into an afterthought, unfortunately. And so that's kind of like what I kept hearing. And so, man, I was like, you know, what can we do to kind of like spice this thing up again? And I had more time on my hands at the time because I was on contract and I was the rhythm Discord manager. I don't even know what that means.
I actually didn't know that.
It was a complete made-up position.
That's so fun. I went on that Discord a couple times. Yeah. There were a few times I was in that chat.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is, but apparently it's the future. So anyway, so I kind of follow, you know, what's happening on YouTube, and it kind of seemed like, you know, the vlogging kind of days were, the glory days of the vlog were kind of coming to an end as a whole on the thing, and like all these people who were kind of doing that were kind of starting all these podcasts, and it's, you know, was getting massive. And so I was like, what would it look like if we had our own podcast? Like, why not, right? And so, you know, we referenced some podcasts and who were really popular with our demographic of person, which was the youth. And I put together like a 10-page pitch on like what this podcast could be. And the day before I was about to pitch it to Tim, me and Elijah were just getting to know each other. This was in May. So I'd only been there for a month. Me and Elijah had not really become like super close friends. We were just kind of starting to learn about each other, and we had been to like one lunch together. And but he was like 16 at the time. He was like kind of the person I feel like we were trying to reach. So I was like, hey bro, you mind looking over this thing real quick and seeing what you think? And so he looked it over, and after he was done going through everything, he was like, dude, this is nuts. Like, are you kidding me?
Just like that too.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And I was like, are you serious? Like, you think this is you think this would be cool? You think people would like this? And he was like, yes, bro. And so I was like, well, he's fired up about it. Like, that's another person I have on my side. I was like, well, would you want to help me pitch it tomorrow to Tim? And he was like, are you serious, bro? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I was going to ask, but, like, I didn't want to intrude, like, to be a part of it and, like, butt in or anything.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, yeah, you're definitely coming in with me tomorrow. And so we made the pitch. Tim was essentially like, yeah, you know, it's, you know, nothing we haven't tried before. Because they had done a podcast. It's called Run the Culture. But we had taken a different angle at it. And he was like, yeah, kind of downplaying a little bit. Nothing I haven't seen before. But, you know, here's a little budget. And why don't you guys just try it? And so we were like, okay, you're going to say that you've seen it before? We'll show you. And so we started the first podcast with Joel Barnes, which was kind of funny because he was coming up to shoot the Back Then music video, and he was staying at mine and Nate's apartment. And we were like, hey, you want to do a podcast? And he was like, sure. So that was the first podcast, and it went so well. It did more views than we thought it was going to, and so that kind of gave us the green light to continue. And it's been one of my favorite things to do ever since. And that's how me and Elijah have really started our relationship and developed into such a cool, one of my best friends. And so, yeah, it's been so fun. And they gave us, like, objectives, like, okay, hit 3. It was just on YouTube. It wasn't on any podcast platforms. They were like, hit 3 videos with 10K. And we'll put you guys on Spotify and the podcast app. And so we did that, and we're on Spotify and podcast now, and it's just been really fun. And seeing how the Lord is using it in youth life specifically, like, has been so cool. And the angle we've kind of taken is, like, have a guest on that the youth would already love and appreciate, and maybe they're not even known for being Christians, but they already have the ear of teenagers, and show them in a different light. And so, like, the amount of cool, like, conversations and things that have come out of that with our youth have been, like, just so fulfilling. It's been really cool. So, yeah.
And not just
That's
for
awesome.
youth either. Like,
Yeah.
I remember when you guys had Maddie on, and I was watching that.
Yeah.
That podcast, like, drastically shifted my view on certain things that I was currently walking through. And so I've recommended that podcast definitely, not just to youth, to adults too.
For sure.
Like, just take a look. It's great. They have some TikTokers on that maybe you've seen before, maybe you haven't, but the content is incredible.
Yeah, and it's actually so funny because with that one, if I'm ever in, like, a college scene, 10 out of 10 times, like, a college, especially like a Christian college scene, some girl is definitely coming up to me and being like, oh, you had Madison Pruitt on the podcast. And I was like, yeah. College scene for sure. But it is cool to see, like, I don't know, in random places. Like that, we were in Clemson at a football game, and, like, the quarterback's girlfriend was like, oh, you did the podcast with Madison Pruitt. I'm like, yeah, we did. It's crazy to see, like, who it's reaching and how many people it is. So we're having a blast. We just did one with Rhythm for their album drop. We're gonna do one with EW for whenever they drop their album. So it's been fun. We got some good people on the radar too. So stay tuned.
That's awesome. Can't wait.
Oh yeah.
No, it's been amazing. Speaking of EW and Rhythm, everyone was up in Toronto. We had Elevation Nights, wrapped up the tour. I can't not talk about it. I can't.
No.
Like, it was honestly monumental for the city. I feel like it shifted a lot.
Yep.
Not just for our church, our campus,
right,
but, like, literally for the city. It's going to be different after this. How is it for you? Like, whole tour, the Toronto stop, obviously it was the biggest one. It was crazy. We like ended it in Toronto, which was so cool to end it kind of like at home in Elevation Church City. But yeah.
Dude, the tour was phenomenal, man. You never kind of know what to expect going into tour. I did the one prior to this as well, and that was just a whole thing because I was like, I didn't know anything I was walking into. This time I had some preconceived notions that just got shattered, but tour was incredible. So what I did on tour was help with our eFam experience. So before and after, we have a whole setup of we have a coffee fan booth and a giveaway booth, and we did a Youth X booth, which is what me and Tim kind of oversaw. And so that's kind of my job on tour. We set that up, we work it, and then we, work it after and tear it down. And so it's really cool because you get to meet people who maybe the band's not meeting or pastor's not meeting because they're, not always available or out there, but we're meeting all the people who are coming to this, flying from Norway and driving from Mexico and like just the craziest stuff. And so one of the things that I'm extremely grateful for on tour is the fact that we get to interface with all these people who are here and expectant and hungry and like just crazy. I'll tell a quick story. One of the where were we? I think we were in St. Louis, Missouri. And one of the we have volunteers who come who are a part of EFAM and help us work the EFAM booth. And so a mom and one of our youth, our online youth, came and helped serve in St. Louis. I hope it's St. Louis. I'm gonna feel so bad if I'm wrong. But she brought her daughter, who's a part of our ministry, and she was help serving at the youth booth, giving out the pins and the magnets and everything. And after it was all said and done, she was phenomenal, like so happy, so joyful. She was, going up to everybody and trying to sign them up for Youth X, and so outgoing. And while she was kind of doing her thing, her mom came up to me and Tim and kind of told us a little bit of her story. And so it turns out she has special needs, and she went out of her comfort zone last year and went to Youth X in Charlotte from St. Louis. And so her mom had said, like, obviously she goes to normal school because she's really high functioning, and she gets bullied a ton. The past year, struggled with suicidal thoughts and all those things. And her mom was walking us through some of the hardships, and she said when she got to Youth X, she said immediately off the plane or bus or however she got there, she felt just an overwhelming sense of like, I belong here, and like everybody welcomed her with open arms. And it legitimately like changed her life, where she literally did not want to be alive before she got there. And when she left, she felt like she had purpose and went back to her school and like started witnessing to people at her school and telling people about her experience at camp. And so it's just like those stories that you get to hear, and they happen at every single city we go to over and over again. It's like, geez, there's 10,000 people in this arena, but like there's 10,000 like sons and daughters of God who have like a testimony, and a massive part of their testimony and with a reason that they're there is because they connect with God through our worship and through Pastor Steven and Pastor Holly. And so I think that's one of the most fulfilling things of tour. And that's the kind of things that you have to latch onto when you literally cannot barely get out of your bunk in the morning, and like you're fumbling your way through a new arena just trying to get to your dressing room and trying to find where catering is, and we have to follow these green arrows, and it's just a whole thing. And so tour was incredible. Definitely, like, God blew our expectation out of the water every stop we were at. Sometimes you go into stops thinking, this is going to be good and cool, but like whatever. And it just never is just cool. It's always like exceedingly abundantly more. Wow. And then we can't not talk about Toronto because it was so special. I can't even imagine doing ministry here and going through the stuff that you guys do and then going to something like that. I'm sure it's just got to feel even crazier. But for an out-of-towner, it just marked me so much, and again, just had the best combos. And seeing some people I'm staying with here, even their lives change, and the things that are happening in their lives, and the way God's marking them, like, it was just insane. And the fact that it was happening for 15,000 people, where the Maple Leafs just had a playoff game the night before. Yeah. I went out into the arena at 8 a.m. and they were just covering the ice. Like, what are we even talking about? I don't even know. But it was a great tour, and Toronto, I don't want to be biased, but it was the best stuff for sure.
Everyone said that.
Everybody said that. No, it was really special though. And then it was really special to stay afterward and come on Sunday and just see the overflow of like
That's insane.
what God is doing after the fact. So, like, you know, a lot of seeds were planted, and then they're already watering and growing and getting, you know, all these new VIPs who are coming on Sunday, like, looking like they're planting roots here and going to start growing. And then the second campus launching. I mean, it's all God's timing and everything, but that was so cool to see because obviously I'd never been to a Sunday here in Toronto. And just the fact that this is happening every Sunday while we're back in Charlotte, I mean, it's just crazy. I haven't even fully, like, processed everything, but it's just been bonkers.
It's awesome. Honestly, it's been awesome having the team up here. Like, it's just big moment for the campus. Even this weekend, like you were saying, celebrated 67 people get baptized, come from death to life. Like, this is wild. This is wild what God's doing. He's on the move in an insane way. So, and what you were talking about with Youth X, sign up for Youth X, guys. Okay, youthx23.com. If you are in that age range, current grade 8 to grade 12, we're sending a whole bunch of you down to Charlotte, or down to Florida,
Orlando,
full circle moments, going back to Florida.
Back
Look at
to
this.
Florida.
So get on there and get signed up for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be great. I'm excited. I will definitely be at Youth X, so I can't wait for that. But we're just so grateful. We're so grateful that you were here and that we got to finally sit down and have this conversation and just even hear more of your heart. Like, we spend time together all the time, but to hear you talk about ministry in this way has been so encouraging for us, for me, for sure. So, man, very, very grateful.
This, and just to flip the script here a little bit, but being here with you guys and seeing, like, all the labor that you guys do and labor through, and, like, the harvest that's coming, like, I am just leaving so inspired by what you guys are doing here. It's absolutely incredible. It's I don't even know. I guess it just blew my expectations out of the water of everything that's going on here in GTA, and, like, the way you guys move and the way you guys, even your staff, like, everybody's up here is so incredible and so nice and so welcoming. And so I'm just leaving inspired by you guys, like what you guys are doing up here, in maybe a place that seems pretty sometimes dark and, like, whatever. People are hungry, and you guys are, like, offering them a place to get plugged in and welcoming them, and it's just incredible. So I'm leaving inspired by you guys for sure on everything that's going on here. So.
Well, we are so grateful. Thank you for that encouragement. And you have to come back and visit.
Oh, yes. Every 3 months. We're just setting it up.
Every 3 months.
I'll be here every 3 months on retainer.
Perfect.
For sure. Thanks for sitting down with us, JT.
Of course. Love you guys so much. You're the best. That's a wrap.